The slap echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Every head turned. Every fork stopped midair. A black man in worn jeans stood frozen, his cheek burning red, while a woman in a designer suit screamed in his face, "Know your place!" His 8-year-old daughter watched from the booth, tears streaming down her face. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at the woman and said 5 words that would haunt her forever. What she didn't know, what nobody in that diner knew, was that in exactly 48 hours, she would walk into her office and discover this nobody had just purchased her entire company. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Marcus Thompson hadn't taken a Sunday off in 3 years. 3 years of 18-hour days. 3 years of conference calls at midnight and red-eye flights across the country. 3 years of building something from nothing, of turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar empire that nobody saw coming. But today was different. Today, his daughter Lily turned 8 years old. "Daddy, can we get pancakes? The ones with the funny faces?" Marcus looked down at his daughter's bright eyes and felt something shift in his chest. She was growing up too fast. Yesterday she was learning to walk. Today she was asking about pancakes with funny faces. Tomorrow she'd be heading off to college, and he'd be sitting alone in some empty mansion, wondering where all the time went. "Baby girl, we can get whatever you want. It's your birthday." Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Even the ones with extra whipped cream. Even those. And chocolate chips. Don't push it." She giggled, and Marcus felt 3 years of exhaustion melt away in an instant. This was why he worked so hard. This right here. This little girl with her mother's smile and her father's stubborn streak. They walked hand in hand down the sidewalk toward Mama Ruth's diner, a small spot Marcus had been coming to since before Lily was born. Back when he was nobody. Back when he couldn't afford the pancakes, let alone the entire building they were served in. Now, he could buy the whole block. But he never forgot where he came from. That was the thing about Marcus Thompson that the business magazines never quite captured. They wrote about his genius. They wrote about his vision. They wrote about the impossible deals he closed and the companies he transformed. They never wrote about Sunday mornings at Mama Ruth's with his daughter. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. Why don't you ever wear your fancy suits on Sundays?" Marcus looked down at his faded jeans and simple gray polo. He'd worn $1,000 suits all week. Custom-made Italian leather shoes. Watches that cost more than most people's cars. But on Sundays, he dressed like the man he used to be. The man who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. "Because on Sundays, I'm not the boss of anything. I'm just your daddy." Lily considered this with the serious expression that always made Marcus laugh. "I think you should be my daddy every day." "I am your daddy every day." "No, I mean the fun daddy, not the phone daddy." That one hit different. Marcus stopped walking. He knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter, ignoring the people streaming past them on the busy sidewalk. "You're right, baby girl, and I'm gonna work on that. I promise." "Pinky promise." She held out her small finger. Marcus wrapped his around it. "Pinky promise." Mama Ruth herself was working the counter when they walked in. She had to be pushing 80 now, but she moved like a woman half her age, shouting orders to the kitchen and pouring coffee without looking at the cups. "Well, well, well, look what the cat dragged in." "Hey, Mama Ruth." "Don't you hey Mama Ruth me. You been gone 3 months. 3 months. You too good for my cooking now." "Never. Just been busy." "Busy," Mama Ruth snorted. "That's what they all say. Too busy to eat. Too busy to visit. Then they wonder why they drop dead at 50 with money they never got to spend." Marcus smiled. This was their routine. Mama Ruth would give him hell, he'd take it, and then she'd bring him the best pancakes in Los Angeles. "And who's this beautiful young lady?" Mama Ruth leaned over the counter, her stern face transforming into pure warmth. This can't be little Lily. Little Lily is a baby. This is a whole grown woman standing in my diner. Lily stood up straighter. I'm 8 today. 8, Lord have mercy, 8 years old. Mama Ruth pressed a hand to her heart. I remember when your daddy brought you in here in a little carrier. You couldn't have been more than a few months old. Slept right through the whole meal while he ate his pancakes with one hand. Marcus remembered that day too. It was 3 weeks after the funeral. 3 weeks after cancer took Michelle and left him alone with a baby he had no idea how to raise. He'd come to Mama Ruth's because it was the only place that felt like home, and he'd sat in that booth crying into his coffee while Lily slept. Mama Ruth had never said a word. She just kept his coffee full and his plate warm. Booth by the window, baby girl, your usual. Thank you, Mama Ruth. They settled into the worn leather booth. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting warm light across the table. Marcus felt his shoulders relax for the first time in weeks. This was peace. This was what he'd been missing. Daddy, tell me a story. What kind of story? The one about Mommy? The one where you met her? Marcus's throat tightened. It always did when Lily asked about Michelle. The grief never really went away. It just became something you learned to carry. You sure you've heard that one 100 times? I know, but I like hearing it. So Marcus told her again. About the coffee shop near the university. About the beautiful woman with the natural hair and the laugh that filled up every room she walked into. About how he'd been too nervous to talk to her for 3 weeks straight, just watching from across the room like some kind of creep. And then what happened? Then she walked over to my table, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Are you going to ask me out, or should I do it myself?" That's right, that's exactly what she said. Lily giggled. Mommy was brave. Mommy was the bravest person I ever knew. The pancakes arrived. Funny faces, extra whipped cream chocolate chips arranged in a smile. Lily attacked them with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't eaten in days. Marcus watched her, his heart full. This was enough. This was everything. The trouble started about 20 minutes later. Marcus was finishing his coffee, half listening to Lily describe some complicated drama in her second-grade class involving stolen crayons and betrayed friendships, when the bell above the door chimed and a new customer walked in. He didn't pay much attention at first, just caught a glimpse in his peripheral vision. Tall woman, expensive clothes, walking like she owned the place. She took the booth directly behind them. Marcus could hear her on the phone immediately, her voice sharp and irritated. She wasn't even trying to keep the conversation private. I don't care what legal says. I want that contract on my desk by Monday morning, or heads are going to roll. Do you understand me, heads? Will. Roll. Lily's eyes went wide. She mouthed the words, heads will roll, with exaggerated horror, and Marcus had to hide his smile behind his coffee cup. Shh. Don't be rude. She's being rude. 2 wrongs don't make a right. But they make it even. Marcus bit his lip to keep from laughing. Lily was too smart for her own good, just like her mother. The woman behind them continued her tirade. Something about quarterly reports and incompetent subordinates, and how nobody seemed capable of doing their jobs without her holding their hands. Marcus recognized the type. He'd dealt with executives like her 1,000 times. People who confused aggression with leadership. People who thought screaming made them powerful instead of just loud. He'd never been that kind of boss. His mother had raised him better than that. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Can I get more orange juice? Of course. Marcus flagged down their waitress, young woman, probably working through college, wearing the exhausted smile of someone pulling a double shift. Could we get another orange juice, please? Sure thing. Be right back. The waitress turned to head toward the kitchen, and that's when Lily's elbow caught her glass of juice. It happened in slow motion. The glass tipped. Orange juice cascaded across the table, dripping over the edge. A thin stream ran across the floor and somehow impossibly managed to splash directly onto the expensive shoes of the woman in the next booth. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course, Of course, that's where it landed. What the hell? The woman was on her feet before Marcus could even grab napkins. She stood there staring at her shoes like Lily had just committed a federal crime. I'm so sorry, Marcus said immediately. It was an accident. Let me pay for the cleaning. Pay for the cleaning. The woman's voice was pure ice. These are $4,000 Louboutins. You think you can just pay for the cleaning? Marcus kept his voice calm. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught him how to handle aggressive people without escalating. I understand you're upset. It was an accident. My daughter didn't mean... Your daughter... The woman looked at Lily like she was seeing her for the first time. Her expression shifted into something Marcus recognized. Something that made his stomach turn. Contempt. Maybe if you taught your daughter some basic manners, accidents like this wouldn't happen. Lily's lower lip started to tremble. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. I don't care if it was an accident. Do you have any idea how hard I work? Do you have any idea what I had to do to afford these shoes? Marcus felt something cold settle into his chest. He put a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but she's 8 years old. It's her birthday, and you're scaring her. Scaring her? The woman laughed, but there was no humor in it. Maybe she should be scared. Maybe she should learn that actions have consequences. She spilled juice. She didn't commit a crime. Juice that ruined $4,000 shoes. Shoes that probably cost more than your entire outfit. There it was. Marcus had been waiting for it. The moment when her anger stopped being about the shoes and became about something else entirely. He'd seen it 1,000 times. The subtle shift in the eyes. The way people looked at his clothes, his skin, his daughter, and made 1,000 assumptions in a single second. That's not really about the shoes, is it? The woman's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. You heard me. She took a step closer. Her perfume was overwhelming. Expensive. Aggressive. Like everything else about her. Listen to me very carefully. I don't know who you think you are, but I am Victoria Chen. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Meridian Technologies. I have worked my entire life to get where I am, and I will not be spoken to like this by someone who clearly can't even afford to be eating here. Marcus felt Lily shrink against his side. He could feel her trembling. That was the line. He could take insults. He could take assumptions. He'd been dealing with people like Victoria Chen his entire life, and he'd learned long ago that their opinions meant nothing. But his daughter was trembling. His 8-year-old daughter on her birthday was trembling because a grown woman was screaming at her over spilled juice. Victoria Chen. Marcus said the name slowly like he was committing it to memory. COO of Meridian Technologies. I'll remember that. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I remember everyone who makes my daughter cry. Victoria laughed again. That same cold, humorless sound. Oh, please, what are you going to do? Write a bad Yelp review. Post something on Twitter. I'm not going to do anything. But I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember exactly how you're treating us right now. Because one day, probably sooner than you think, you're going to wish you'd made a different choice. Is that supposed to scare me? No. It's supposed to make you think. But I can see that's not really your strong suit. Victoria's face went red. Nobody talked to her like this. Nobody challenged her. In her world, she was the one who did the challenging, and everyone else fell in line. How dare you, Daddy? Lily's voice was small. Daddy, can we just go? Please? Marcus looked down at his daughter. Tears were streaming down her face. Her birthday was ruined. The pancakes sat cold on the table, the funny face now looking somehow sad. He made a decision. You know what? You're right, baby. Let's go. He stood reaching for his wallet to leave money on the table. He'd pay for the meal, pay extra for the mess, and they'd leave. It wasn't worth it. Nothing was worth seeing his daughter in tears. But Victoria wasn't done. That's right. Walk away. That's all people like you know how to do. Marcus froze. People like you. 3 words. 3 words that carried 400 years of history. 3 words that his mother had heard, his grandmother had heard, his great-grandmother had heard. He turned slowly. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Because if you said what I think you said, I said people like you, people who don't belong in places like this, people who let their children run wild and ruin other people's things and then expect everyone else to just accept it." The diner had gone completely silent. Every patron was watching. Every phone was out. This was no longer a private argument. This was a public spectacle. Marcus felt the rage building in his chest. He'd spent his whole life learning to control it, learning to channel it into something productive, learning to prove people wrong with success instead of violence. But this was different. This was his daughter, his baby girl, being humiliated on her birthday by someone who saw them as less than human. "You don't know anything about me," he said quietly. "You don't know anything about my daughter. You see us, and you make assumptions based on what we look like, what we're wearing, where you think we come from. And those assumptions tell me everything I need to know about you. I don't need to know anything about you. I know enough." "No, you really don't. Please." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Enlighten me. Tell me what I don't know. Tell me what makes you so special." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, and that's when Victoria Chen slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the diner like a thunderclap. Marcus's head snapped to the side. His cheek burned. For a moment, he was somewhere else entirely, 8 years old, being slapped by a foster parent for eating too slowly. 14 years old, being slapped by a cop for walking home from school in the wrong neighborhood. 22 years old, being slapped by a college advisor who told him he'd never amount to anything. His whole life, people had been putting their hands on him, testing him, trying to break him. Not one of them had succeeded. He turned back to face Victoria, his expression completely calm. "Daddy!" Lily screamed. She was sobbing now, clutching at his leg. "Daddy, are you okay?" The diner erupted. Mama Ruth came charging from behind the counter like a woman possessed. Patrons were on their feet, shouting, phones recording everything. "Oh my God, did she just... She hit him. Call the police. Are you getting this?" Victoria's face had gone pale. The reality of what she'd done was starting to sink in. She'd just committed assault, in public, on camera, in front of dozens of witnesses. But she was too proud to back down. "He threatened me. You all saw it. He threatened me." "Lady, he didn't do nothing." A man in a construction vest was on his feet. "I watched the whole thing. You've been screaming at that little girl for 10 minutes over some spilled juice. She ruined my shoes." "They're shoes, and that's a child." Marcus tuned out the chaos. He knelt down, ignoring the pain in his cheek, and wrapped his arms around his daughter. Lily, baby, look at me." She looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Is that lady going to hurt you again?" "No, baby. Nobody's going to hurt anybody. I need you to take a deep breath for me, okay? Can you do that?" Lily nodded, hiccuping. "Good girl. Now I need you to remember something. Okay? I need you to remember this moment." "Why?" "Because this is what hate looks like. This is what happens when people let their anger and their assumptions and their pride control them. And I never ever want you to be like that woman. Do you understand?" "Yes, Daddy." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "Now I'm going to handle this. I need you to go sit with Mama Ruth for a minute. Can you do that?" Lily nodded again. Mama Ruth was already there, scooping the little girl up in her arms and carrying her toward the counter. Marcus stood. Victoria was still surrounded by angry patrons, still trying to justify what she'd done. "He was threatening me. He said he was going to remember me. What was I supposed to do?" "Lady, you're supposed to use your words, not your hands. This is assault. Someone call the police." "Yeah, we calling the police on you." Marcus walked toward her, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Something in his expression made people step back. Not fear. Marcus Thompson didn't inspire fear, but authority. A quiet, unshakable authority that filled up the entire room. Victoria saw him coming and actually took a step backward. "Stay away from me. I'll sue you. I'll have you arrested. Do you have any idea who I am?" Victoria Chen, Chief Operating Officer of Meridian Technologies. "You told me already." "That's right. And I have lawyers who will destroy you. I have connections that will make sure you never—" "Victoria." Something in the way he said her name made her stop. Made everyone stop. Marcus stood directly in front of her now. Close enough that she could see the handprint still forming on his cheek. Close enough that she could see the calm in his eyes, the complete and utter lack of anger where rage should have been. "What? I want you to listen to me very carefully. Because I'm only going to say this once. I don't have to listen to anything you—" "Yes, you do." The authority in his voice was absolute. Victoria's mouth snapped shut. "In about 48 hours, you're going to walk into your office at Meridian Technologies. You're going to sit down at your desk, check your emails, maybe pour yourself a cup of coffee. And then your assistant is going to come in and tell you that there's an emergency board meeting, that the company has been acquired, that there's a new owner, and he wants to meet with all the senior executives immediately." Victoria's face twisted in confusion. "What are you talking about? Meridian isn't for sale. We're not—" "When you walk into that meeting, you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. Your CEO, your CFO, your board members. And then you're going to see one face you don't expect. One face that's going to make your stomach drop. You're insane. You're actually insane. This is some kind of—" "My face, Victoria." The diner went completely silent. "Because my name is Marcus Thompson, and as of midnight tonight I officially own Meridian Technologies. Every share, every asset, every employee, including you." Victoria's face went white. She actually staggered backward, catching herself on a table. "No, that's impossible. The acquisition was anonymous. Nobody knows who—" "Nobody knows because I wanted it that way. I wanted to see the company from the inside before I made myself known. I wanted to see what kind of people I was really buying." He leaned in slightly, just enough to make his point. "And now I have." Victoria Chen, Chief Operating Officer, looked like she was about to pass out. Her entire world was collapsing in real time, and the man responsible was standing in front of her with a handprint on his face and absolute calm in his eyes. "This isn't— You can't be— I don't—" "Monday morning, Victoria. My office. We're going to have a conversation about your future. Or lack of one." He turned and walked away. Behind him, the diner remained frozen. Phones still recording. Mouths still hanging open. The silence so complete, you could hear the coffee dripping in the kitchen. Marcus Thompson collected his daughter from Mama Ruth, left $300 on the counter, and walked out into the Sunday morning sun. He had 48 hours before the world found out what he already knew. And Victoria Chen had 48 hours to understand exactly what she'd done. The drive home was silent, except for Lily's soft sniffles from the back seat. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. The handprint on his cheek had faded to a dull throb, but the memory of Victoria Chen's face, that mixture of contempt and superiority, burned hotter than any physical pain. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby." "Why did that lady hit you?" Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. How do you explain hatred to an 8-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that some people will look at her skin and decide she's worth less before she ever opens her mouth? Sometimes people are hurting inside, Lily. And when people hurt inside, they do ugly things to make themselves feel better. But you didn't do anything wrong? No, I didn't. So why did she hurt you? Marcus pulled the car into their driveway and sat there for a moment, engines still running. He turned around to face his daughter. Her eyes were red from crying, But there was something else there too. Confusion. The first crack in her understanding of how the world worked. He hated Victoria Chen for that more than anything else. More than the slap. More than the insults. She had stolen a piece of his daughter's innocence, and that was something he could never get back. Lily, do you remember what I told you about your grandmother? About how she worked 3 jobs to take care of me when I was your age? Lily nodded. She cleaned houses and worked at the hospital and did laundry for rich people. That's right. And do you know why she had to work so hard? Because you were poor. Because people like that woman in the diner looked at your grandmother and decided she wasn't good enough. They decided that before they knew her name, before they knew she was the smartest, kindest, strongest person I've ever met, they just looked at her and decided. That's not fair. No, baby, it's not fair. But here's what Grandma taught me. She said, Marcus, you can't control what other people think, but you can control who you become. You can work harder. You can be smarter. You can build something so big that they can't ignore you anymore. And that's what I did. Is that why you bought that lady's company? Marcus almost smiled. His daughter was too sharp for her own good. I didn't buy it because of her. I bought it because it's a good company with good people who deserve better leadership. But yes, baby, now that lady has to answer to me. And she's going to learn that the man she slapped in that diner isn't someone she can look down on anymore. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this. Daddy? Yeah? Are you going to fire her? Marcus thought about it. He'd thought about little else since walking out of that diner. The easy thing would be to fire Victoria Chen the moment he walked into that building. Clean, simple, justified. Nobody would blame him. But easy wasn't always right. I don't know yet, baby. I need to think about it. I think you should fire her. Why? Because she was mean, and mean people shouldn't get to be in charge. That's one way to look at it. But you know what Mama used to say? She said revenge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. If I fire that woman just because she hurt me, I'm not teaching her anything. I'm just making myself feel better. So, what are you going to do? Marcus turned off the engine and opened his door. I'm going to give her a choice, and then I'm going to see what kind of person she really is. Victoria Chen didn't sleep that night. She sat in her penthouse apartment, surrounded by the evidence of her success, the modern furniture, the original artwork, the view of the Los Angeles skyline that had cost her $2 million and felt it all crumbling around her. Marcus Thompson. She'd Googled him the moment she got home. Article after article, Forbes profiles, Business Insider interviews, a rags to riches story that would have been inspirational if it didn't make her want to throw up. Orphaned at 12. Bounced through foster homes until he aged out of the system at 18, worked his way through community college, then state school, then an MBA from Stanford on a full scholarship. Started his first company in a garage with $300 and a laptop. Now he was worth $4 billion. And she had slapped him across the face in a diner. Victoria's phone buzzed. Another text from her assistant. Board meeting confirmed for Monday 9 a.m. New owner will be present. Please advise on preparation. She threw the phone across the room. For 20 years, she had clawed her way up the corporate ladder. 20 years of 16-hour days. 20 years of being the only woman in every meeting, the only Asian face in every boardroom. She had sacrificed everything, relationships, friendships, any semblance of a personal life to get where she was. And now it was all going to end because of spilled orange juice. The irony wasn't lost on her. She walked to her bar and poured herself a whiskey. Her hands were shaking. Victoria Chen's hands never shook. She had fired hundreds of people without flinching. She had destroyed competitors, dismantled departments, made decisions that affected thousands of lives with nothing but cold calculation. But now, alone in her apartment, she couldn't stop her hands from shaking. She thought about the little girl in the diner. The one with the birthday pancakes. The one who had watched her slap a man, her father, and burst into tears. Victoria had barely registered the child in the moment. She'd been too angry, too focused on her ruined shoes and the perceived disrespect. But now in the silence of her apartment, she could see those eyes clearly. Wide, terrified, innocent. She had made a child cry on her birthday. Victoria drained her whiskey and poured another. When had she become this person? She remembered being young once, hopeful. Her parents had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but 2 suitcases and a dream. Her father worked in a restaurant kitchen for 30 years, and her mother cleaned hotel rooms until her back gave out. They had sacrificed everything so Victoria could go to college, could become something. Be twice as good, her mother always said. Work twice as hard, and never ever let them see you weak. Victoria had listened. She had been twice as good, worked twice as hard. She had built walls around herself so high that nothing could penetrate them. No insult, no setback, no discrimination could touch her. But somewhere along the way, those walls had become a prison. She had become the very thing she hated. The person who looked at someone and made assumptions. The person who saw a black man in worn clothes and decided he was beneath her. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, she picked it up. What? Victoria, it's Daniel. Her CEO's voice was tight with barely concealed panic. Have you seen the news? What news? Check your Twitter. Check anything. It's everywhere. Victoria grabbed her laptop and opened Twitter. Her name was trending. Number 3 in the United States. She clicked on it and felt her stomach drop through the floor. The video was everywhere. Someone in the diner had uploaded it. The whole thing. Her screaming at the little girl. Her slapping Marcus Thompson. The reveal of his identity. The crowd's gasps. Marcus's calm, devastating words. Monday morning, Victoria. My office. We're going to have a conversation about your future, or lack of one. The video had 12 million views and counting. The comments were brutal. Fire her immediately. This is what privilege looks like. She slapped a man in front of his daughter on her birthday. Monster. Meridian Technologies should be boycotted until she's gone. Anyone know if that little girl is okay? My heart is breaking for her. Victoria slammed the laptop shut. Victoria, are you there? I'm here. The board is meeting in an hour. Emergency session. Thompson's lawyers have already been in contact. He's not just buying the company, he's bought the building, the subsidiaries, everything. It's a complete acquisition. I know. What are you going to do? Victoria stared at her reflection in the dark window. She barely recognized the woman staring back. I don't know. Across town, Marcus was lying in bed, unable to sleep. Lily had finally drifted off around midnight, exhausted from crying. He had held her until her breathing steadied, stroking her hair, and humming the lullaby Michelle used to sing. The same lullaby his mother had sung to him, passed down through generations like a prayer. Now he stared at the ceiling, running through everything that had happened. His phone had been blowing up for hours. His publicist, his lawyers, his board members. Everyone wanted to know what he was going to do about Victoria Chen, about the video, about the PR nightmare that was threatening to overshadow his biggest acquisition. He had ignored them all. Instead, he found himself thinking about his mother. Eleanor Thompson had died when Marcus was 12. Breast cancer caught too late because she couldn't afford regular checkups. She had worked herself to death trying to give him a better life, and in the end the system she'd trusted had failed her. Marcus had spent the next 6 years in foster care. Some homes were fine. Others were nightmares. He learned quickly that the world didn't owe him anything, that survival meant being smarter and stronger than everyone who wanted to keep him down. But his mother's voice had stayed with him. Marcus, baby, don't let them make you hard. The world will try. Lord knows it will try. But you got your father's strength and my heart. You use both, you hear me? Strength without heart is just cruelty. Heart without strength is just weakness. You need both. He had carried those words with him through every challenge, every obstacle, every person who had looked at him and seen nothing but a statistic waiting to happen. Now he had to decide what to do with Victoria Chen. The easy answer was destruction. Fire her publicly. Let the internet have its pound of flesh. Make an example of her so that no one would ever dare treat his family that way again. But that's not what his mother would have wanted. Eleanor Thompson had spent her whole life being treated as less than by people like Victoria Chen. Rich people, powerful people, people who saw her uniform and assumed they knew everything about her. She had never responded with hatred, never let it poison her. Hate is heavy, baby. You carry it long enough, it'll break your back. You want to fight back, succeed. Be so good they can't ignore you. And when you get to the top, reach back and pull someone else up. That's how you win. Marcus sat up in bed. He knew what he had to do. Sunday passed in a blur. Marcus spent most of it with Lily trying to salvage what was left of her birthday weekend. They went to the zoo. They got ice cream. They watched her favorite movie 3 times in a row until Marcus knew every word by heart. She seemed better. Kids were resilient like that. But he caught her staring into space. Sometimes her small face troubled. She was processing, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly become more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Is the lady from the diner going to say sorry? Marcus pulled her onto his lap. I don't know, but that's not really the point, is it? What do you mean? I mean, a sorry doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't unslap me or unscare you. What matters is what happens next. Does she learn? Does she change? Does she treat people better? What if she doesn't? Then she'll have to live with who she is. And that's punishment enough, I think. Living with yourself when you know you're not a good person, that's worse than anything I could do to her. Lily considered this with her usual seriousness. I think I want her to learn. I don't want her to be mean to other people. Marcus hugged his daughter tight. Me too, baby. Me too. Monday morning arrived like a storm. Victoria Chen walked into Meridian Technologies headquarters at 7 a.m., 2 hours before the board meeting. She had spent the rest of the weekend preparing for every possible scenario, consulting with lawyers, drafting resignation letters, making plans. The building felt different somehow. The same gleaming lobby, the same security guards, the same employees rushing to their desks. But everything had shifted. Like a picture that had been slightly tilted, throwing everything off balance. People stared at her as she walked to the elevator. Some whispered. Others quickly looked away. The video had made her infamous overnight. Everyone knew what she had done. She kept her head high. If this was going to be her last day, she would face it with dignity. The boardroom was already full when she arrived. Daniel Chen, no relation, sat at the head of the table, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The other executives were arranged around the table, their faces carefully neutral. And at the far end in the chair that had always belonged to the CEO sat Marcus Thompson. He was wearing a tailored suit now, charcoal gray, perfectly fitted. His presence filled the room in a way Victoria had never experienced. This was not the man from the diner. This was a man who had built an empire from nothing, who commanded respect without raising his voice, whose calm authority made everyone else seem smaller by comparison. Ms. Chen. His voice was level. Please have a seat. Victoria sat. The silence was unbearable. I assume everyone has seen the video by now, Marcus said. I'm not going to rehash what happened. You all know the facts. What matters now is how we move forward. Daniel cleared his throat. Marcus, the board wants you to know that we fully support whatever decision. I'll handle this, Daniel. Thank you. Daniel fell silent immediately. Marcus turned his attention to Victoria. Those calm eyes that had unnerved her in the diner were even more unsettling in this context. She couldn't read him. Couldn't tell if he was planning to humiliate her, fire her, or something worse. Ms. Chen. Victoria. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what to do with you. My lawyers have recommended immediate termination with cause. My PR team has recommended immediate termination with a public statement condemning your behavior. My board has recommended immediate termination with a generous severance to avoid litigation. Victoria felt each word like a blow. But I'm not going to do any of those things. Her head snapped up. What? I said I'm not going to fire you. At least not yet. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Daniel looked like he was about to have a stroke. Marcus, with all due respect, the public relations implications alone. I said, I'll handle this. Silence again. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes locked on Victoria. 20 years ago, I was working 3 jobs trying to put myself through community college. One of those jobs was washing dishes at a restaurant downtown. The owner was a man named Frank DiMaggio. He was old school, Italian, tough as nails, and he had no patience for excuses. Victoria didn't understand where this was going, but she didn't dare interrupt. One night I broke a stack of plates, expensive ones. I was exhausted, my hands were wet, and I dropped the whole thing. Frank came into the kitchen, saw the mess, and I was sure he was going to fire me on the spot. I needed that job. Without it, I couldn't pay rent, couldn't pay tuition. My whole life would have fallen apart. Marcus paused. You know what he did? He looked at the broken plates, looked at me, and said, Kid, you know what separates the men from the boys? It's not whether you make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's what you do after. Then he handed me a broom and told me to clean it up. Didn't fire me, didn't dock my pay, just gave me a chance to do better. Why are you telling me this? Because Frank DiMaggio taught me something that day. He taught me that people aren't defined by their worst moments. They're defined by what comes after. I broke those plates because I was careless and tired. But what mattered was that I showed up the next day, worked harder, and never made that mistake again. Marcus stood and walked slowly around the table until he was standing directly in front of Victoria. You slapped me in front of my daughter. You called me names. You looked at me and saw nothing but my skin color and my clothes, and made 1,000 assumptions about who I was and what I was worth. That was your broken plates moment. Victoria's throat was tight. She couldn't speak. Now here's the question, Victoria. What comes after? Are you the kind of person who learns, who grows, who looks at themselves honestly and does the hard work of becoming better? Or are you just going to make excuses, blame everyone else, and keep being the person you were in that diner? I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything yet. Just listen. Marcus walked back to his seat, but didn't sit down. I'm giving you a choice. Option 1. You resign. Today. You walk out of this building with your severance and whatever's left of your reputation, and we never see each other again. Victoria nodded slowly. That was expected. Option 2. You stay. But you don't stay as COO. You take over our new diversity and inclusion initiative. You spend the next year learning about the experiences of people who don't look like you, who didn't have your advantages. You run workshops. You mentor. You listen to stories from employees who have been treated the way you treated me. And you report directly to me every week on what you're learning and how you're changing. The boardroom was stunned into silence. That's not a punishment, someone muttered. That's a demotion, a massive demotion. It's not a demotion, Marcus said. It's an opportunity, and it's more than most people would get in this situation. He turned back to Victoria. So what's it going to be? The easy way out or the hard way forward? Victoria's mind was racing. She had expected destruction, humiliation, public termination, and years of rebuilding her career from scratch. Instead, she was being offered a choice. Why? The word came out before she could stop it. Why would you do this? After what I did to you, to your daughter? Marcus's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because my mother taught me that people can change. Because a man named Frank DiMaggio gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. And because my daughter asked me to give you a chance to learn. She's 8 years old, and she has more wisdom and compassion than most adults I know. I'm not doing this for you, Victoria. I'm doing this for her. To show her that the right response to hatred isn't more hatred. It's opportunity. Victoria felt something crack inside her. Some wall that she had built so carefully over so many years, brick by brick, to protect herself from the world. She thought about her parents, their sacrifice, their dream for her future. She thought about the little girl in the diner crying on her birthday. She thought about who she had become and who she wanted to be. I'll stay. The words came out quiet, but certain. I'll stay and I'll do the work. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if I deserve this chance, but I'll try. That's all I can promise. I'll try. Marcus nodded slowly. That's all any of us can do. He turned to the board. Meeting adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss the transition. Ms. Chen, my assistant, will send you the details of your new role by end of day. He headed for the door, then paused and looked back at Victoria. And Victoria, this isn't forgiveness. You haven't earned that yet, but it's a start. Then he was gone. Victoria sat alone in the boardroom as the other executives filed out, their whispers filling the air behind her. For the first time in 20 years, she had no idea what came next. But for the first time in even longer, she felt something that might have been hope. The first week was hell. Victoria Chen had spent 20 years as one of the most powerful executives in corporate America. She had commanded budgets worth hundreds of millions. She had hired and fired at will. She had walked into rooms and watched people straighten in their chairs, adjust their ties, rehearse their words because they knew she could end their careers with a single phone call. Now she was sitting in a folding chair in a basement conference room listening to a 24-year-old HR coordinator explain the company's diversity training curriculum. So as you can see from this slide, implicit bias affects decision-making in ways we're often not aware of. Studies show that resumes with traditionally African American names receive 30% fewer callbacks than identical resumes with traditionally white names. Victoria stared at the PowerPoint presentation and felt something twist in her stomach. She had reviewed thousands of resumes in her career. Had she done this? Had she looked at a name and made assumptions before reading a single qualification? She knew the answer. She just didn't want to admit it. Ms. Chen, do you have any questions? Victoria looked up at the young woman leading the training. Her name was Destiny Williams. 24 years old, fresh out of grad school, hired 6 months ago to rebuild Meridian's diversity program from the ground up. She was black confident and clearly unimpressed by Victoria's former title. No questions. Are you sure because you've been staring at that slide for about 5 minutes and you look like you want to say something? Victoria felt the old defensiveness rise up, the instinct to snap back to remind this girl who she was dealing with, but she forced it down. I was just thinking about how many times I might have done exactly what that slide describes, without even realizing it. Destiny's expression shifted, just slightly, a crack in the professional facade. That's actually a really honest answer. I'm trying. I noticed. Destiny clicked to the next slide. Let's keep going. The days blurred together. Victoria arrived at 6 a.m. and left at midnight. Not because anyone was forcing her to, but because she couldn't stop. Every workshop, every training session, every conversation opened another door she hadn't known existed. Behind each door was something ugly, something she had to face. She learned about microaggressions, the small, seemingly innocent comments that accumulated over time like poison. You're so articulate. Where are you really from? You don't seem like a typical. She had said all of these things, dozens of times, hundreds maybe. She had thought she was being complimentary. She learned about code switching, how employees of color had to constantly adjust their speech, their dress, their behavior to fit into spaces that had been built without them in mind. How exhausting it was to never fully be yourself. She learned about the school-to-prison pipeline, about generational wealth gaps, about housing discrimination that had shaped entire cities. She learned about things that had been happening right in front of her for her entire life while she remained willfully blind. And slowly, painfully, she began to understand what she had done in that diner. It wasn't just a slap. It wasn't just an insult. It was the culmination of a lifetime of assumptions, biases, and willful ignorance compressed into a single violent moment. She had looked at Marcus Thompson and seen everything she had been taught to see. Everything society had told her about black men in worn clothes. Everything her own prejudices had whispered to her. She had been wrong about all of it. 3 weeks into her new role, Victoria requested a meeting with Marcus. His assistant, a crisp young man named David, looked at her with barely concealed suspicion. "Mr. Thompson has a very full schedule." "I understand. I just need 10 minutes. "May I ask what this is regarding?" Victoria hesitated. She could have pulled rank, could have reminded David that she was still technically an executive, that she had been in this building when he was still in middle school, but that was the old Victoria, the one she was trying to leave behind. "I need to apologize, properly." David's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I'll see what I can do." 2 days later, Victoria was sitting in Marcus Thompson's office. It was smaller than she expected. No massive desk, no wall of trophies and awards. Just a simple wooden table, some comfortable chairs, and a single framed photo on the bookshelf. Victoria recognized the little girl from the diner. Lily. She was smiling in the photo, gap-toothed and radiant. Marcus walked in and sat across from her. He didn't say anything, just waited. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Victoria began. "About what happened, about who I am, about how I got here. And I realize that 'I'm sorry' isn't enough. Those words are too small for what I did. You were right in the boardroom. I looked at you and made 1,000 assumptions. I saw your clothes, your skin, your daughter, and I decided I knew everything about you. I decided you were less than me." Marcus's expression didn't change. "And now I understand that I was the one who was less aware, less compassionate, less human." Victoria's voice cracked. She hadn't cried in years, had trained herself to see tears as weakness, but now she felt them burning behind her eyes. "I keep thinking about your daughter, about the look on her face when I slapped you. She'll remember that for the rest of her life. I gave her a memory of hatred on her birthday, and I can never take that back." Marcus was silent for a long moment. "You're right. You can't take it back. I know. Lily has been having nightmares. She asks me why the lady was so angry. She asks me if it was her fault for spilling the juice. My 8-year-old daughter thinks she caused a grown woman to assault her father." Victoria felt the tears spill over. She didn't try to stop them. "I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." "I believe you are. How can you even look at me? After what I did, why didn't you just fire me and be done with it?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. He looked tired, Victoria realized. Not the physical exhaustion of long hours, but something deeper. The weariness of a man who had been fighting his whole life. "You want to know the truth. The night after the diner, I wanted to destroy you. I sat in my home office for hours planning exactly how I would do it. Fire you publicly. Make sure you never worked again. Sue you into bankruptcy. I had the resources. I had the justification. Nobody would have blamed me. Why didn't you? Because of my daughter." Marcus looked at the photo on his bookshelf. "She asked me if I was going to be mean back. I told her no. She asked me why not. And I realized I didn't have a good answer, because revenge feels good isn't something I want to teach her. Because that woman deserves it isn't either. So I had to find a different answer. And you did. I found the answer my mother would have given. You give people the chance to be better. Not because they deserve it, but because that's who you want to be. You can't control other people's choices, but you can control your own." Victoria wiped her eyes. I don't know if I can be better. I've been this way for so long. Then why are you here? Because I want to try. Because I keep thinking about Lily's face. And I want to do something to make it right. Even if I can never actually make it right. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he did something Victoria didn't expect. He smiled. That's the first honest thing you've said to me since I met you. The weeks turned into months. Victoria threw herself into the diversity and inclusion initiative with the same relentless energy she had once applied to climbing the corporate ladder. She designed workshops, partnered with community organizations, established mentorship programs for underrepresented employees. She listened more than she talked. She asked questions instead of making assumptions. And slowly, she began to change. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks. Moments when the old Victoria would surface snapping at a subordinate or making a thoughtless comment. But she learned to catch herself, to apologize, to do better. The employees noticed. At first, they had regarded her new role with suspicion. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone knew what she had done. They assumed this was just PR damage control, a cynical move to protect the company's image. But as the months passed, something shifted. She actually listened to me today. A young black engineer named Marcus told his colleagues in the break room. Like, really listened. I told her about the microaggressions I deal with from my team lead, and she didn't make excuses or try to explain it away. She just asked what she could do to help. I heard she got Rodriguez fired, another employee added. The guy in accounting who kept making those jokes about immigrants. She brought it to HR with documentation going back 2 years. My sister applied for the new internship program Victoria set up, first in our family to have a shot at a tech career. The whispers changed. Not completely. Some people would never forgive her. But for others, there was a grudging acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, people could change. Victoria didn't hear these conversations. She was too busy working. 4 months after the diner incident, she requested another meeting with Marcus. This time, David didn't look at her with suspicion. He just smiled and said, "He's expecting you." Victoria walked into the office and found Marcus at his table reviewing documents. Lily's photo had been joined by several others. Awards, team photos. A drawing that looked like it had been made by a child depicting 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Lily made that for me, Marcus said, noticing her gaze. After her first day back at school following the incident, she wanted me to have something happy to look at when I was at work. She's an amazing kid. She is. Marcus set down his papers. You wanted to see me? I have an idea, something I'd like to propose. I'm listening. Victoria sat down across from him. Her hands were shaking slightly. This mattered to her in a way she couldn't fully explain. I want to go back to Mama Ruth's diner. I want to apologize to everyone who was there that day, publicly. And I want to establish a scholarship fund in Lily's name for children from underserved communities. It would cover everything: tuition, books, living expenses, a full ride to any college they can get into. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's a significant gesture. It's not enough. Nothing will ever be enough. But I want to do something concrete. Something that turns that terrible day into something positive. Why Lily's name? Because she's the one I hurt most, not you. You're an adult. You've dealt with people like me before. But she was innocent. She was just trying to celebrate her birthday, and I gave her a nightmare instead. I want her to see that something good can come from something bad, that the world can surprise you. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Have you talked to Lily about this? No, I wanted to ask you first. It's not my place to involve her without your permission. Another long silence. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Victoria stood to leave. She was at the door when Marcus spoke again. Victoria, she turned. For what it's worth, I've noticed the work you've been doing. The employees talk about you differently now. Some of them are even starting to respect you. I don't deserve their respect. Maybe not, But you're earning it, and that counts for something. Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. I'll let you know about the scholarship. And Victoria. Thank you for trying. Most people don't. She left his office with tears in her eyes for the second time. But these tears felt different. These tears felt like hope. The response came 2 weeks later. Victoria was in her office reviewing proposals for a new community partnership program when her email chimed. She glanced at the sender and her heart stopped. Marcus Thompson. She opened it with trembling fingers. Victoria, I've talked to Lily about your proposal. She had a lot of questions. She wanted to know why the lady from the diner wanted to use her name. She wanted to know if you were still mean. She wanted to know if you were sorry for real or just pretend sorry. I told her I didn't know for sure, but that I thought you were trying to be better. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said something that I want to share with you. She said, Daddy, remember how you taught me about butterflies? How they start as caterpillars, and then they change into something beautiful. Maybe the lady is like a caterpillar. Maybe she's trying to change. I couldn't argue with that. So here's my answer. Yes, you can establish the scholarship in Lily's name, but there's a condition. Before you do anything public, I want you to meet Lily, face to face. I want you to apologize to her directly, and I want you to listen to whatever she has to say to you, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much it hurts. If you can do that, then we have a deal. Marcus. Victoria read the email 3 times. Then she typed her response. Tell me when and where. I'll be there. The meeting was set for the following Saturday. Mama Ruth's Diner. 10 a.m., full circle. Victoria didn't sleep the night before. She tried on 6 different outfits before settling on simple jeans and a blouse. No designer labels. No power suits. She wanted to look like a person, not an executive. She arrived 15 minutes early and sat in her car trying to control her breathing. This was the hardest thing she had ever done. Harder than the hostile takeover of her first company. Harder than firing her mentor when the board demanded it. Harder than any negotiation, any confrontation, any challenge she had faced in her entire career. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about facing the consequences of her worst self. At 9:55, she walked into the diner. Mama Ruth was behind the counter just like before. The old woman looked up, and her eyes narrowed. You got some nerve showing your face in here. I know. You know what you did to that little girl, to that good man in my diner. I know. Then why are you here? To apologize. To Lily, if she'll let me. Mama Ruth studied her for a long moment. Decades of wisdom in those old eyes reading Victoria like a book. They're in the back booth, the same one you ruined on her birthday. Mama Ruth leaned closer. You hurt that child again, and I don't care how much money you got, or how many lawyers you know. I will end you myself. Understood. Victoria walked toward the back of the diner. Each step felt like a mile. And there they were. Marcus Thompson sat in the booth, his arm around his daughter. Lily looked up as Victoria approached. Those same bright eyes, that same gap-toothed smile, though now it was hesitant, uncertain. Victoria stopped at the table. Hello, Lily. Hi. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. You didn't have to do that. Daddy said it was my choice. I wanted to see you. Why? Lily tilted her head, considering the question with the same seriousness Victoria had seen before. Because I wanted to see if you changed. Daddy says people can change if they try hard enough. I wanted to see if you tried. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Can I sit down? Lily looked at her father. Marcus nodded. Okay. Victoria slid into the booth across from them. She had prepared a speech. Had practiced it 100 times in her mirror. But now, looking at this child, all the words seemed inadequate. Lily, I want to say something to you and I need you to listen carefully. Can you do that? Lily nodded. What I did to your daddy was wrong. What I did to you was wrong. I was angry about something stupid, and I took it out on your family. You didn't deserve that. Your daddy didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves to be treated the way I treated you. Why did you do it? The question was simple, direct, and it demanded an honest answer. Because I was mean. Because I looked at your daddy, and I made wrong guesses about him. I thought I knew who he was just by looking at him, and I was completely wrong. You were wrong because he's black. Victoria flinched. She wanted to deny it, to find some other explanation, but she had promised herself she would be honest. Yes, part of it was that. That's not fair. You can't know what someone is like just from looking at them. You're right, it's not fair, and it took me a long time to understand that. Lily was quiet for a moment. Are you still mean? I'm trying not to be. Every day I wake up and I try to be better than I was the day before. Sometimes I fail, but I keep trying. Why? Because of you, actually. Lily's eyes widened. Me? When I slapped your daddy, I saw your face. I saw how scared you were, how sad. And I realized that I had done that. I had hurt a child who was just trying to celebrate her birthday. That's not who I want to be. So I decided to change. And you're still trying every single day. Lily turned to her father. They seemed to have an entire conversation without words. Then she turned back to Victoria. Okay, I forgive you. Victoria felt the tears come again. She didn't try to stop them. Just like that. My daddy says that holding on to anger is like holding a hot rock. It only burns you. I don't want to be burned anymore, so I'm letting go. Victoria looked at Marcus. He was watching his daughter with an expression of pure pride. She's incredible, Victoria whispered. She's her mother's daughter. Lily slid out of the booth and stood next to Victoria. Can I tell you something? Anything. I'm glad you're trying to be better. I think everyone should try to be better, even when it's hard. Before Victoria could respond, Lily did something that broke her completely. She hugged her. This 8-year-old girl, who had every right to hate her, who had every reason to never forgive her, wrapped her small arms around Victoria Chen and hugged her. Victoria sobbed. She couldn't help it. Couldn't stop it. 20 years of walls, 20 years of armor, 20 years of hardness all crumbled in an instant under the weight of a child's forgiveness. It's okay, Lily whispered. It's okay to cry. Daddy cries sometimes too. Only when I watch sad movies, Marcus said. And when you miss Mommy. And when I miss Mommy. That's true. Victoria pulled back, wiping her eyes. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for giving me a chance I didn't deserve. Lily smiled. The real smile this time. The one that lit up her whole face. Everyone deserves a chance to be a butterfly. And in that moment, in a worn booth in a small diner where the worst day of her life had begun, Victoria Chen finally understood what redemption felt like. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours of the meeting at Mama Ruth's, phones started buzzing across Los Angeles. Someone had recognized Victoria Chen walking into the diner. Someone else had seen her sitting with Marcus Thompson and his daughter. By noon, the speculation was everywhere. Is she apologizing? Did he forgive her? What the hell is happening? Marcus had anticipated this. He had lived in the public eye long enough to know that nothing stayed private anymore. Every meal, every meeting, every conversation was potential content for someone's social media feed. But this time, he didn't mind. Daddy, why are people taking pictures of us? They were walking to the car, Lily's hand in his. A small crowd had gathered outside the diner, phones raised voices calling out questions. Because they're curious, baby. They want to know what happened. Should I wave? Marcus laughed. If you want to. Lily turned and gave the crowd a small wave, her gap-toothed smile lighting up her face. The cameras went crazy. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, did you forgive her? Is Victoria Chen still working for you? Lily, how do you feel about the lady who slapped your daddy? Marcus opened the car door and helped Lily inside. He turned to face the reporters, his expression calm. I'm not going to answer questions right now. But I will say this, my daughter just taught a grown woman something about forgiveness that most adults never learn. I'm proud of her, and I hope everyone watching can learn something from her example. He got in the car and drove away, leaving the crowd buzzing behind him. Victoria didn't go home after the meeting. She drove around for hours, replaying every moment in her mind. Lily's face, Lily's words, Lily's hug. That small body pressed against hers, offering forgiveness she hadn't earned and didn't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to be a butterfly. She pulled over on a quiet street and sat there, engine running, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed. Her assistant. Ms. Chen, the press is going crazy. We're getting calls from every major outlet. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, they all want statements. What do you want me to tell them? Tell them nothing, not yet. But Ms. Chen, I said not yet. She hung up. For the first time in her career, Victoria Chen had no interest in controlling the narrative. No interest in spin or damage control or strategic messaging. All she wanted was to sit with what had just happened, to feel it, to understand it. An 8-year-old girl had forgiven her. An 8-year-old girl had shown more grace and wisdom than Victoria had displayed in 43 years of life. How do you respond to that? She called Marcus that evening. I need to do something, she said without preamble. The scholarship fund isn't enough. I need to do more. Marcus was quiet for a moment. She could hear Lily in the background laughing at something on television. What did you have in mind? I want to go public. Not just with an apology, but with the whole story. What I did, why I did it, what I've learned. I want to use my platform to talk about bias and privilege and all the things I was blind to for so long. That's a big step. You'd be opening yourself up to a lot of criticism. I deserve criticism. You'd also be making yourself vulnerable in a way you've never been before. I know. Why do you want to do this? Victoria thought about the question. Really thought about it. Because Lily forgave me. And if an 8-year-old can be that brave, then I have no excuse to be a coward. I've spent my whole life hiding behind walls, pretending to be strong when I was really just afraid. Lily showed me what real strength looks like. It looks like vulnerability. It looks like forgiveness. It looks like standing in front of someone who hurt you and choosing love instead of hate. Marcus was silent for a long time. Victoria, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Anything. If the video had never gone viral, if no one had ever found out what happened, if there had been no consequences, would you still have changed? The question hit her like a punch. I don't know, she admitted. I want to say yes. I want to believe that I would have looked at what I did and been horrified. But honestly, I don't know. I've done things like that before. Maybe not that extreme, but similar. And I never thought twice about it. So no, I can't say for sure that I would have changed without the consequences. That's the most honest answer you could have given. It's also the most damning. Maybe. But here's the thing, Victoria. It doesn't matter why you started changing. What matters is that you keep changing. What matters is what you do next. Is that a yes to going public? It's not my decision to make. This is your story, your redemption. You get to decide how to tell it. Victoria closed her eyes. Will you be there? When I do it, I think I need support. The words were hard to say. Victoria Chen had never asked for support, had never admitted to needing anyone. But this was the new Victoria, the butterfly emerging from the cocoon. I'll be there. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't faced the world yet. The press conference was scheduled for the following Friday. Victoria spent the week preparing. Not the usual preparation of crafting sound bites and anticipating questions. This was different. This was preparing herself to be completely, totally, terrifyingly honest in front of the entire world. She wrote and rewrote her statement 100 times. Each version felt wrong somehow. Too polished, too rehearsed, too much like the old Victoria trying to manage her image. Finally, on Thursday night, she threw away all her notes. She would speak from the heart. Whatever came out, came out. She barely slept. Friday morning arrived cold and gray. Victoria dressed simply. No power suit, no designer labels. Just a plain black dress and minimal makeup. She wanted people to see her, not her armor. The conference room at Meridian headquarters was packed. Every major news outlet had sent reporters. Cameras lined the back of the room like soldiers at attention. The buzz of conversation filled the air, everyone speculating about what was coming. Victoria stood in the wings watching the crowd through a crack in the door. "You okay?" She turned. Marcus was standing behind her dressed in a simple gray suit, calm as always. "I'm terrified." "Good. That means you're taking this seriously." "What if I mess it up? What if I say the wrong thing?" "Then you say the wrong thing, and you correct it, and you keep trying." Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "Victoria, you've spent your whole life trying to be perfect, trying to never show weakness. That ends today. Today you show the world who you really are, the good and the bad, and whatever happens next, at least you'll know you were honest." "How are you so calm?" "I'm not calm, I'm just better at hiding it." Victoria almost smiled. "Lily wanted me to give you something." Marcus pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket. It was a drawing. Crayon on construction paper. 2 figures standing side by side under a rainbow. One was clearly meant to be Lily with wild curly hair and a big smile. The other was a woman with dark hair and tears on her face. At the bottom, in wobbly child's handwriting, were the words, "You can do it, love, Lily." Victoria pressed the drawing to her chest. "I can't." She made it last night, stayed up past her bedtime to finish it. She said you needed to know that someone believed in you. Victoria wiped her eyes. "I won't let her down." "I know you won't." The PR coordinator appeared at her elbow. "Ms. Chen, they're ready for you." Victoria took a deep breath. She folded Lily's drawing carefully and tucked it into her pocket over her heart. Then she walked out to face the world. The cameras started flashing the moment she appeared. Victoria walked to the podium, her heels clicking against the floor. The crowd fell silent. Every eye was on her. Every camera was rolling. This moment would be broadcast around the world, analyzed and dissected and judged by millions. She gripped the podium with both hands. "Thank you all for coming. I have a statement to make, and then I'll take questions." She paused, feeling the weight of every gaze. 6 months ago, I committed an act of violence in a public place. I slapped a man in front of his 8-year-old daughter on her birthday. Many of you have seen the video. Many of you have formed opinions about what happened and who I am. Today I want to give you the complete truth. The room was absolutely silent. The man I assaulted was Marcus Thompson. I didn't know who he was at the time. All I saw was a black man in worn clothes with a child I assumed was poorly raised. I saw spilled juice on my expensive shoes, and I decided that gave me the right to humiliate and attack a stranger and his daughter. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I'm not here to make excuses. There are no excuses." I was angry, entitled, and deeply prejudiced. I looked at Marcus Thompson, and I made 1,000 assumptions based on nothing but his appearance and his skin color. Every single one of those assumptions was wrong. And even if they had been right, nothing would have justified what I did. Victoria's voice shook, but she pressed on. "I grew up believing that success meant being better than everyone else. Smarter, tougher, more ruthless. I built walls around myself so high that nothing could touch me. I told myself I wasn't racist because I had overcome discrimination myself. I told myself I wasn't cruel because I had worked hard for everything I had. I was lying to myself, and I was wrong." She looked directly into the cameras. The truth is, I was exactly the kind of person I always claimed to despise. I was someone who judged others without knowing them. Someone who used power to intimidate rather than uplift. Someone who confused aggression with strength and cruelty with success. After the incident, Marcus Thompson had every right to destroy me. He could have fired me, publicly sued me into bankruptcy, made sure I never worked again. Instead, he gave me a choice. He offered me the chance to change, to learn, to become better than I was. I don't know why he did that. I don't think I deserved it. But he did it, and I took that chance, and for the past 6 months, I have been on a journey that has fundamentally changed who I am. Victoria pulled Lily's drawing from her pocket and held it up. This was made by Marcus Thompson's daughter Lily, the same little girl I traumatized on her birthday 6 months ago. She made this last night. She wanted me to know that someone believed in me, that she forgave me. Her voice broke completely. An 8-year-old girl forgave me for something unforgivable. She taught me about grace and mercy and the power of choosing love over hate. She is the reason I'm standing here today. Not because I deserve it, but because she believes everyone deserves a chance to become a butterfly. Victoria wiped her eyes. I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness. I haven't earned it. I'm not here to defend myself. There is no defense. I'm here to make a promise to spend the rest of my life trying to undo the damage that people like me have done. A promise to use whatever platform I have to fight against the prejudice and bias that I once embodied. A promise to be worthy of the chance that Marcus Thompson gave me, and the forgiveness that his daughter offered. She folded the drawing and returned it to her pocket. Today, I'm announcing the establishment of the Lily Thompson Scholarship Fund. This fund will provide full educational support to children from underserved communities who dream of careers in business and technology. It will be funded by half of everything I earn for the rest of my career. Not because money can fix what I did, but because action is the only thing that matters now. I'm also announcing my full return to public life, not as an executive hiding behind press releases and carefully managed appearances, but as a person. A flawed, broken, changing person who wants to use her mistakes to help others avoid theirs. Victoria straightened her shoulders. I know many of you will never forgive me. I understand that. I know many of you will see this as a PR stunt, as damage control, as a calculated move to salvage my career. I can't control what you think. All I can do is show you day after day, year after year, that I mean what I'm saying. I was a caterpillar. I'm trying to become a butterfly. And whether you believe me or not, I'm going to keep trying for the rest of my life. She paused. I'll take questions now. The room exploded. Ms. Chen. Over here. Victoria, do you think this is enough? What does Marcus Thompson think about your announcement? How can you claim to have changed in just 6 months? Is this about saving your career or genuine remorse? Victoria pointed to a reporter in the front row. You with the CNN badge, go ahead. Victoria, critics are saying that your transformation is too convenient, that you only changed because you were caught. How do you respond to that? Victoria nodded slowly. That's a fair criticism, and honestly, I can't prove it wrong. I don't know if I would have changed without consequences. I'd like to believe I would have, but I can't say for certain. What I can say is that the reason you start changing is less important than whether you keep changing. I was caught. I was exposed. I was humiliated. And that broke something in me that needed to be broken. So yes, maybe I only changed because I got caught. But I'm going to keep changing regardless. That's all I can promise. Another reporter jumped in. What about the people at Meridian who have to work with you? The employees of color who know what you did. How can they trust you? They shouldn't trust me, not yet. Trust is earned over time through consistent action. All I can do is show up every day and treat people with dignity and respect. If after years of that, they still don't trust me, I'll understand. I'm not entitled to their trust. I'm only entitled to the chance to earn it. A reporter from Fox News raised his hand. Ms. Chen, some are saying Marcus Thompson is being too soft on you, that he should have fired you immediately. What do you say to those who think his decision undermines accountability? Victoria turned to look at Marcus, who was standing off to the side of the room. I think Marcus Thompson has shown a kind of leadership that most people can't even comprehend. It would have been easy to fire me. It would have been satisfying. It would have given everyone the pound of flesh they wanted. But he didn't do the easy thing. He did the hard thing. He chose to believe that people can change even when every reason said otherwise. That's not weakness. That's the strongest kind of leadership there is. Marcus gave her a small nod. Furthermore, Victoria continued, I think accountability isn't just about punishment. Anyone can punish. What Marcus did was harder. He held me accountable by making me face what I'd done. By making me learn. By making me become someone different. I've faced myself every day for 6 months. I've had to look at the ugliness inside me and decide to be better. That's accountability. The real kind. The questions went on for another hour. Some were hostile, some were sympathetic, some were clearly looking for sound bites and drama. Victoria answered them all with the same unflinching honesty. She talked about her childhood, about her immigrant parents, about the chip on her shoulder that had grown into a wall around her heart. She talked about the moment she slapped Marcus, how it felt to watch herself become the villain, how she had lain awake that night knowing her life was over. She talked about the workshops and trainings and conversations that had slowly opened her eyes, about the employees who had shared their stories with her, trusting her, even when they had every reason not to. She talked about Lily, about the hug that had broken her, about the drawing in her pocket that she would keep forever. And when it was over, when the last question had been asked and the cameras had finally stopped rolling, Victoria walked off the stage and collapsed into a chair. How did I do? Marcus sat down next to her. You did good. Really? Really? You were honest. You were vulnerable. You didn't make excuses or try to spin anything. That's all anyone can ask. What happens now? Now we wait and see. Some people will believe you, some won't. Some will give you a chance. Some will never forgive you. That's out of your control. What do you think? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I think my mother would have been proud of what happened in that room today. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Don't let it go to your head. You still have a lot of work to do. I know. Marcus stood. I have to get home. Lily's waiting. She wants to know how it went. Tell her thank you, for the drawing, for believing in me, for everything. Tell her yourself. Sunday lunch, Mama Ruth's, 11 o'clock. She wants to hear all about it. Victoria stared at him. You want me to have lunch with your family? Lily wants you to have lunch with our family. I'm just the messenger. Marcus, I don't know what to say. Say yes. Victoria smiled through her tears. Yes. Marcus nodded and walked toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Victoria. Yeah. Welcome to the long road. It doesn't get easier, but it does get better. Then he was gone. Victoria sat alone in the empty conference room, the echoes of her confession still hanging in the air. She pulled out Lily's drawing and looked at it again. 2 figures under a rainbow, one with tears, one with a smile, both standing together. Victoria folded the drawing carefully and put it back over her heart. Then she stood up and walked out into whatever came next. The Sunday lunch became a tradition. Every week without fail, Victoria Chen walked into Mama Ruth's diner at exactly 11 o'clock. She sat in the same booth where everything had started. The same booth where she had screamed at a child over spilled juice. The same booth where she had slapped a man she didn't know and changed both their lives forever. Now it was the booth where she learned what family could look like. Victoria. Victoria. I got an A on my spelling test. Lily came running across the diner, her braids flying behind her, waving a paper covered in gold stars. She crashed into Victoria's legs with the kind of full-body hug that only children know how to give. "That's amazing, sweetheart. Let me see." Victoria took the test and examined it with exaggerated seriousness. Every word perfect, every letter carefully formed. "This is exceptional work, Miss Thompson. I think this deserves a celebration. Can I get chocolate chip pancakes? You can get whatever you want." Marcus slid into the booth across from them, shaking his head with a smile. "You're spoiling her. That's my job now. Since when? Since she decided to forgive me when she had every reason not to. I owe her approximately 1 million chocolate chip pancakes." Lily giggled. "That's a lot of pancakes." "Better get started then." Mama Ruth appeared at their table, her weathered face creased in a smile that had taken months to earn. The usual for everyone. "Yes, please, Mama Ruth." The old woman patted Victoria's shoulder as she walked away. A small gesture, but Victoria felt it like a blessing. A year ago, Mama Ruth had threatened to end her if she hurt Lily again. Now she patted her shoulder and smiled. That was progress. That was redemption measured in small moments. "Daddy, tell Victoria about the thing." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What thing?" "You know. The thing. The secret thing." "Oh, that thing." Victoria looked between them. "What's going on?" Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. "This came yesterday." Victoria opened it. Inside was a formal letter on heavy cream paper. Her eyes scanned the words and her heart stopped. "The National Business Leadership Award. They want to give it to both of us, together, for demonstrating what they're calling transformative corporate leadership in the face of adversity. Marcus, this is one of the most prestigious awards in the country." "I know. They want to honor us after everything. They want to honor what we built together. The scholarship fund has helped over 200 kids in its first year. The diversity initiatives at Meridian have become a model for companies across the country. The training programs you developed are being adopted by Fortune 500 companies worldwide." Victoria stared at the letter, unable to speak. "There's more," Marcus said. "Read the last paragraph." Her eyes dropped to the bottom of the page. "The committee wishes to particularly recognize Ms. Victoria Chen for her unprecedented public accountability and her ongoing commitment to personal transformation. In an era of corporate scandals and hollow apologies, Ms. Chen has demonstrated that genuine change is possible when one is willing to face their failures honestly and work tirelessly to make amends." Victoria set the letter down. Her hands were shaking. "I don't deserve this." "Maybe not, but you're getting it anyway." "Marcus, I can't accept an award for what? For not being a terrible person anymore. For doing the basic minimum of treating people with dignity. That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" Marcus leaned forward. "Victoria, do you remember what you said at the press conference? You said you wanted to use your platform to fight against prejudice. You said you wanted to be worthy of the chance you'd been given. You've done that. Every single day for a year you've done that. This award isn't for what you did in that diner, it's for what you've done since. But the starting point was so low. I was a monster. And now you're not. That's the whole point." Lily tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Victoria. Yes, sweetheart. You should take the award." "Why do you think so?" Lily's face was serious. The same serious expression she'd worn in this very booth a year ago when she'd said everyone deserves a chance to be a butterfly. "Because other people need to see that changing is possible. My teacher says that stories are powerful, that they can change how people think. Your story could help other people who are mean become not mean." Victoria looked at this child. This extraordinary child who had somehow become the moral compass of her entire life. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just didn't know me yet." Marcus laughed. "She's got you there." The pancakes arrived. Chocolate chip for Lily, blueberry for Marcus, plain, with a side of fruit for Victoria. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from people who have been through something together and come out the other side. Victoria watched Marcus help Lily cut her pancakes, watched the easy affection between them. A year ago she had tried to destroy this, had looked at this beautiful family and seen something to despise. Now she couldn't imagine her life without them. "Marcus." "Yeah." "Can I ask you something I've never asked before?" "Go ahead." "Why did you really give me a chance?" "The truth. Not the story you tell reporters or the explanation you gave the board, the real reason." Marcus set down his fork. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. "The night after the diner, I sat in Lily's room and watched her sleep. She'd had nightmares. Kept waking up crying, asking if the mean lady was going to come back. And I sat there and I was so angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. I wanted to hurt you. I wanted to make you feel what my daughter felt." Victoria nodded. She had known this, had felt the weight of it in every interaction for months. "But then I looked at Michelle's picture, my wife. She died when Lily was a baby, but I keep her picture on Lily's nightstand so she can see her mother's face every morning." "I know. Lily's told me about her. Michelle was the best person I ever knew, not because she was perfect, but because she believed in people, even people who didn't deserve it, especially people who didn't deserve it. She used to say that everyone is fighting a battle you can't see, that cruelty usually comes from pain, and the only thing that heals pain is love." Marcus's voice grew thick. "I sat there looking at her picture, and I asked her what she would do. And I swear, Victoria, I could hear her voice in my head, clear as day. She said, 'Marcus, you can't fight hate with hate. You can only fight it with love. Give her a chance to be better.' That's what I would do." Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "So I did. I gave you a chance because my dead wife told me to. Because I wanted to be the kind of man she believed I was. Because I wanted to show Lily that forgiveness is stronger than revenge. And now I'm glad I listened to her. Because you've become family. Not despite what happened, but because of it. You earned your place at this table, Victoria. You earned it every day for a year." Lily looked up from her pancakes. "Daddy, you're making Victoria cry." "I know, baby. Sometimes crying is good. Like when you watch sad movies. Just like that." Victoria wiped her eyes and laughed. "I love you both. You know that I never thought I'd say those words to anyone, but I love you." Lily grinned. "I love you too, Victoria." Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Welcome to the family. Officially." The award ceremony was held 3 months later at a grand hotel in New York City. Victoria stood backstage looking at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a simple black dress, no designer labels, no statement jewelry, just a small butterfly pin on her collar that Lily had given her for Christmas. "You look perfect." She turned. Marcus was standing in the doorway looking distinguished in his tuxedo. Lily stood next to him in a purple dress that she had picked out herself, her hair done up in an elaborate style that had taken 2 hours. "I'm terrified." "Good. That means you care." "What if I mess up my speech? What if I start crying? What if everyone realizes I don't deserve to be here?" Lily walked over and took Victoria's hand. "Victoria, remember what you told me about butterflies, about how they have to struggle to get out of the cocoon. And if someone helps them, their wings never get strong enough to fly." "I remember." "You struggled. Your wings are strong now. You can fly." Victoria knelt down so she was eye level with Lily. "How did you get so good at knowing exactly what to say?" "I practice on Daddy." "She does," Marcus confirmed. "It's terrifying." The stage manager appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Chen, Mr. Thompson. They're ready for you." Victoria stood. She straightened her dress. She touched the butterfly pin. "Okay, let's do this." The ballroom was packed with the most powerful people in American business. CEOs, board chairs, investors, politicians, media moguls. They sat at elegant round tables, champagne glasses in hand, watching as Victoria and Marcus walked onto the stage. A giant screen behind them showed the story of the past year. The viral video, the press conference, the scholarship fund, the policy changes, the interviews, the transformation. Victoria stood at the podium and looked out at the crowd. "I'm supposed to give an acceptance speech. I've written and rewritten it probably 50 times. Every version felt wrong, too polished, too rehearsed. So I'm going to throw out my notes and just talk to you." She set the papers aside. 2 years ago, I was one of you. Successful, powerful, respected. I had everything society told me I was supposed to want. And I was miserable. I was angry. I was cruel. I looked at the world and saw enemies everywhere, and I fought them with everything I had. Then I walked into a diner and slapped a man in front of his daughter, and my life fell apart. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I'm not going to tell you the whole story. You've all seen the video. You know what I did. What I want to tell you is what I learned. I learned that success without kindness is worthless. That power without compassion is just cruelty with better clothes. That all the money and influence in the world means nothing if you've lost your humanity along the way. I learned that the people I had been taught to look down on were often better than me, more generous, more forgiving, more human. I learned that my prejudices were making me small, even as I thought they were keeping me safe. Most importantly, I learned that change is possible. Real change. Not the kind you perform for cameras or put in press releases. The kind that happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The kind that hurts because you have to look at yourself honestly and admit that you don't like what you see. Victoria paused. "I'm not standing here because I'm special. I'm standing here because I got caught. Because a video went viral and I couldn't hide from what I'd done. But here's the thing, most people never get caught. Most people carry their prejudices and their cruelties through their whole lives, never confronting them, never changing. So I want to challenge everyone in this room. Don't wait until you're caught. Don't wait until a video goes viral or a lawsuit gets filed or your reputation is in ruins. Look at yourselves now. Look honestly. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? How do I treat people who can't help me? What assumptions do I make about people before I know their names? If you don't like the answers, change. It's not too late. It's never too late." Victoria turned to Marcus, who was standing beside her. "This man gave me a chance I didn't deserve. His daughter forgave me when she had every right to hate me forever. They taught me what grace looks like, what real strength looks like. Not the kind that comes from intimidation, but the kind that comes from choosing love over hate, even when hate would be easier." She turned back to the crowd. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm asking you to learn from it. To let my worst moment become a lesson that helps you avoid yours. To look at the people you encounter every day and see human beings, not obstacles or inferiors or threats. Because everyone deserves dignity, everyone deserves respect, and everyone deserves a chance to become a butterfly." Victoria stepped back from the podium. For a moment there was silence. Then one person stood and began to clap. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was on its feet, applauding. Victoria looked out at the standing ovation and felt something she had never felt before. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Not triumph. Just peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've done the right thing even when it was hard. The kind that comes from finally being honest about who you are. Marcus put his arm around her shoulder. "You did good. Thanks for believing in me. Thanks for being worth believing in." Lily ran onto the stage and grabbed both their hands. Can we go get ice cream now? Victoria laughed through her tears. We can get whatever you want. 1 year later, Victoria stood in front of the first graduating class of the Lily Thompson Scholarship Program. 52 young people, 52 dreams that might have died without support. 52 futures that had been changed because of the worst day of Victoria's life. She looked out at their faces. Black, white, Asian, Latino. Rich backgrounds and poor. First-generation college students and legacy admits. All of them united by one thing, the belief that they could be more than their circumstances. When I was your age, Victoria began, I thought success meant stepping on people. I thought it meant being the smartest, the toughest, the most ruthless person in the room. I was wrong. Success is standing here today, looking at all of you and knowing that something good came from something terrible. Success is having the courage to face your failures and turn them into fuel for change. Success is leaving the world a little better than you found it. You are my redemption, every single one of you. When I look at you, I see the future I almost destroyed, the potential I almost crushed, the hope I almost extinguished. And I am so grateful that I got the chance to help you instead of hurt you. She paused. There's someone here I want to introduce. Someone who made all of this possible. Not me. I was just the catalyst. The real hero is a little girl who taught me what forgiveness means. Lily walked onto the stage, now 9 years old, but carrying herself with the confidence of someone much older. This is Lily Thompson. The scholarship fund bears her name because she showed me that hatred doesn't have to win. That compassion is stronger than cruelty. That even the worst person can become better if someone is brave enough to give them a chance. Lily took the microphone. Hi everyone. My dad says I'm supposed to say something inspiring. But I just want to say congratulations. You worked really hard and I'm proud of you. And I hope you remember that no matter how successful you get, you should always be nice to people, because you never know what battles they're fighting, and because being mean makes you ugly on the inside, even if you're pretty on the outside. The audience laughed and applauded. Victoria hugged Lily tight. Perfect, as always. I know. After the ceremony, Victoria found Marcus standing alone by the window looking out at the city lights. You okay? Just thinking. About what? About Michelle. About what she would think of all this. About whether she'd be proud. Victoria stood beside him. I never met her. But from everything you and Lily have told me, I think she'd be proud. Not just of you, but of what we've built together. You know what the craziest part is? What? If you hadn't slapped me in that diner, none of this would exist. The scholarship fund, the programs, the 52 kids who just graduated. All of it came from the worst moment of your life. Victoria nodded slowly. I've thought about that a lot. It doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing will ever excuse it. But maybe some good can come from bad. Maybe that's the only way forward. Taking the terrible things that happen and turning them into something better. That's exactly what Michelle would say. Then I'm honored to be compared to her. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city sparkle below. Victoria. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For changing. For doing the work. For becoming someone Lily can look up to. Marcus paused. For becoming family. Victoria felt the tears come again. She didn't fight them. Thank you for giving me the chance. For seeing something in me worth saving when I couldn't see it myself. That's what family does. Lily ran up to them, her dress already wrinkled from playing with the other kids at the reception. Daddy, Victoria, they have cake. Can we have cake? Marcus looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at Marcus. Race you there, she said. You're on. They took off running, Lily shrieking with delight, chasing them through the elegant reception hall, while dignified business leaders watched in confusion and amusement. Victoria Chen, former monster, current butterfly, running through a party like a child laughing like she hadn't laughed in 40 years. This was redemption. Not a moment, not an award, not a single dramatic transformation. Just this. Day after day, choice after choice. Becoming a little bit better than you were yesterday. She had been a caterpillar, selfish, cruel, blind. Now she was a butterfly, and she would spend the rest of her life proving that anyone at all could change. Because that was the truth that Lily Thompson had taught her in a diner on a Sunday morning. That was the truth that Marcus Thompson had shown her by choosing forgiveness over revenge. That was the truth that would outlast all of them. Hate is heavy, kindness is light, and the only real strength in this world is the courage to love people who haven't earned it yet. Victoria Chen finally understood, and she would never forget.